Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox backing in with Matt Kelly for another episode of the award winning Compliance Into the Weeds. Welcome back, Matt.
Hello, Tom. Good to be here.
Matt, you wrote on something last week that I think has been on the mind of almost all, if not all, compliance professionals since the president's executive order of early February suspending FCPA investigation and enforcement. And that is where does compliance go? So you want to set it up. Where were you when you heard the discussion that you wrote about, and what did you end up taking away from that discussion?
Yeah, so this was an event that happened here in Boston the other week. Compliance Week magazine had a small gathering of compliance professionals. So I dropped by, and there was a panel discussion talking about the future of corporate compliance. And they were not specifically programming that discussion for anything alarmist or like that. But there was a certain subtext of, I think, career concern that kind of lurked in some of what we were all discussing there. And really, Tom, I think even aside from this specific panel discussion I was attending, I think a lot of compliance officers are, I don't know that they're worried, some might be, but I think most of them are at least pondering what will happen to the role of the compliance professional in the future? And could it somehow be made obsolete by, I think, either of two ways? Number one, the regulatory climate becomes so relaxed that companies think they don't really need a compliance officer anymore, not a dedicated compliance person. Or number two, will technology advance so much that the need for a human compliance officer with his or her expertise, will that go away? And will that leave me, the compliance professional, on the curb with my hands in my pockets? That's the kind of subtextual thing or tension that I think lurks in a lot of conversations these days. And it was there in that panel. I thought it was good that we sort of get it out and talk about it.
So let's maybe unpack each one of those as you did in your blog post, Matt, because the regulatory rollback, cutback, suspension, whatever it may be, is certainly, I think, going to continue under the Trump administration. But my observation is that, and I think we may have even said this before, if this had happened in 2010, you and I might be in very different careers. But in 2025, compliance is so baked into the business operations and business ecosystem of American companies that it can't be unbaked out of. And whether that means a whistleblower line, whether that means a compliance program, whether that means demonstrating third party due diligence to someone who is going to buy your company, to lend you money, to invest in your company, or even give you insurance, or to even do business with you, has really overtaken even the need for regulatory compliance in non-regulated industries. So that I think there will always be this understanding now that compliance is here to help identify, assess, and manage risk on a go-forward basis. Any thoughts along those lines?
Maybe let me tell you a little more about where this conversation was going in that panel discussion I was at. That generally people were saying, no, probably not. Companies are not going to get rid of their compliance capabilities wholesale. You're not going to get rid of your internal hotline. You are not going to cease performing due diligence on third parties. But one comment from Christy Grant Hart, the inestimable and who I think is very perceptive compliance thinker, Christy said, could compliance be subsumed into legal? Maybe. And that caught my attention because I think it points to the real issue here is that we have several different things bundled up into the phrase corporate compliance. There is anti corruption compliance that had been primarily driven by the FCPA. There is corporate compliance generally, because the FCPA is not the only regulation large companies face, but there is also more operational risk management, which these days is so entwined with corporate compliance duties that it's really hard to unravel them. But I do wonder if some companies are going to try. So you could maybe sketch out a scenario where there is really not much regulatory enforcement from the Trump administration, fewer enforcement actions overall. When those enforcement actions do happen, they're probably not going to involve a lot of big resolutions with corporate undertakings that would typically need a compliance officer to be there to strengthen a program. Maybe we're just going to see a lot of fines. And I have noticed several different, say, False Claims Act settlements within the last couple of weeks where there were of actual compliance breakings, putting that. But have been noted, would that scenario lead the general counsel, tight-fisted CFO, to say, okay, so we need a dedicated compliance officer? Or couldn't that regulatory compliance to do, which is now going to be much more infrequent, and legal do that? So let's say some cynical company says, sure, we'll give it a try. Then they might think, while we're at it, what about that hotline? Couldn't that maybe be just run by HR? And the privacy compliance stuff, couldn't that be run by IT security? And you could see cynical companies, short-sighted ones, in my opinion, slowly but surely talk themselves into diminishing the scope of the compliance program until it reaches the vanishing point and there's no CCO. That's the scenario that I could see some companies talking themselves into, or maybe sleepwalking themselves into. I don't think it's a good one, and I don't think it will happen very often. And I can give you 2 reasons for that. One is just tactically, I think a lot of stuff would therefore get lost in the cracks. If HR is running the hotline and legal is running regulatory compliance, but not really because, hey, it's not like anybody's getting their chops busted by the administration anyways, and IT security doing their own thing. And there's just a whole lot of people sticking in silos. And we have just been talking for the last 15 years about how silos are bad. So that would lead to maybe more chance for bad stuff to happen. And then second, I do think there's still this strategic imperative that, Tom, to your point, bringing it back to your original question 3 minutes ago, that compliance and risk management are very much entwined right now. So having robust compliance capabilities is good, but scattering them to the wind across the whole enterprise is not. You still need to have them housed in one place under one person so that the company can be very adept at navigating operational risks, which often now overlap with compliance obligations. And given that large companies are now regulated by the global entities, anyways, by global regulators. So I'm not sure that disintermediation, the unraveling of compliance capabilities and then weaving them into other function in the enterprise. That's going to be my metaphor of choice. I don't know that's going to happen in a widespread way, but I could see that some companies are going to try that, and that would be the path for them to talk themselves into. We don't really need a chief compliance officer anymore.
So, Matt, I guess the thing I took away from the executive order and those questions that you have posed is that this is actually an opportunity for compliance. And this is an opportunity for compliance to demonstrate that they bring real business value to an organization. And I had that thought, but that thought was incredibly well articulated by Wei Chen in a blog post back on February 11th.
Mhm.
And she said it's time for compliance to step up their game, that it's not compliance, it's ethics and compliance. And she focused on the ethics part. And she actually gave 3 specific things you should do now, which was realistically reassess your program, your company and messaging, broaden your focus and your messages, and then up your game with leadership. I took that in a couple of different ways, which I'm going to get to the technology part in a moment around AI. But I think she is spot on that it's not compliance officers shouldn't sit around and wait for the company to do something. They should go on the offensive now, do these things, and demonstrate to management we are here. We bring real business value to the organization. And to your point, if we move these functions out to some of the other corporate disciplines that you have articulated, that will destroy our overall messaging and we will devolve back into a disjointed response to a lot of different things. On the technology side, if we want to move to that, I
Sure.
see AI as a boon to compliance officers. Why don't you set up the questions or at least maybe the vibe you were feeling in there?
Yeah, so a lot of people were both excited about AI's potential and anxious about AI's potential at the same time. or at least I think they were. Again, it's more, there's a subtext of concern here that everybody knows AI is here to stay. I think by now everybody knows also that AI is going to be a slow roll. FCPA, and we haven't seen unemployment. We haven't seen a wholesale in the future. So I'm kind of odd. But again, the question becomes, will some short-sighted companies see AI's potential as a way to diminish the scope and need of a dedicated compliance function to the vanishing point? One person had said, the question they asked was, will AI make compliance officers? And I seized on that because think about what that question is really asking. Will AI replace the compliance officer? Now, let's play that out in an absurd sort of a way. So, does the AI then report to the general counsel? Is the chief risk officer going to ask the AI, please find our 20% most risky third parties, get rid of them? And the first line, not going to use those parties anymore. And they tell about it, which the first line always does. You, AI. That's not how people actually would use it. That is not what would happen if AI had replaced the chief compliance officer. Although, if it was a human chief compliance officer, yeah, totally. Everything I just sketched out, that's exactly what some chief compliance officers might have to do. AI doesn't work that way. AI would help the general counsel do CCO kind of stuff. AI will let you, the one person, do the duties and work of 1.25 people. So, could a general counsel use AI to do a fair bit of chief compliance officer duties? And could HR use AI to do a fair bit of internal reporting stuff that the CCO would do? And we're right back to what I had said before about unraveling the compliance officer role into its component threads. And then AI is used to take those threads and stitch them back into other business functions, and you're still without a job. That's how AI might lead to the demise of the chief compliance officer. If you believe that's true, and I'm not sure I do, and if the company actually thinks that's going to be a good idea to get rid of a dedicated compliance officer. And frankly, Lord help the company that thinks that is a bright idea, because I don't believe that it is. I do think, however, it drives home the point to compliance officers, kind of what Hui Chen was saying. And I agree, the post she wrote before is spot on, and everybody should dig it up. It's on LinkedIn somewhere, and you can read it. AI is going to be a moment where compliance officers should seize on that. Don't let others seize on AI to leave you without the chair when the music stops. You use AI to say, this is all the other ways I can now improve the program to be even better at helping the company, because good compliance capabilities working in a unified way, good corporate integrity, strengthening our culture, those are good things. And we need them more than ever, which I believe is empirically true, regulatory environment aside. So if you can use AI, compliance officer, to help yourself, that's great. And you should use it. Nobody was saying at this panel that we shouldn't use AI. Everybody was thinking about how to use AI more effectively. However, beware that there are going to be those short-sighted cheapos out there who are thinking AI is going to be a great way to downsize the compliance function. They're wrong, but somebody somewhere out there, they are still going to try. And let's just be honest about that.
On your blog post, I think you use the numerical value of 1.25, that
I
AI
did.
could be up to 1.25 or give the compliance professional 1.25 in extra ability or more quicker, faster analytical ability. Every AI professional I talk to, and I talk to a lot, always says the phrase human in the loop. And that's their buzzword for you have to have human oversight. You absolutely positively
Mhm.
cannot have AI reporting to another AI or even reporting to a general counsel. Someone's got to interpret that. Someone's got to implement that. Someone's got to manage that. And then someone has to upgrade as appropriate. There are a lot of different areas that AI can enhance compliance. You can embed AI in your compliance operations. You can use it in your third party risk management. You can use it in your monitoring. You can use it in your whistleblower program and your speak up culture. You can use it for reg tech updates. You can use it in your education, including training, communications, and messaging. You can use it in your behavioral analytics. You can use chatbots to enhance the employee user experience or employee experience. And I think what compliance needs to do now is embrace these tools and go to management and say, we can manage your risk, because it's not just compliance risk. It's not just ethical risk. It's not just climate risk. It's not just terror risk. It's risk. And if you can't figure out how you're going to restart your generators because the power plant half a mile away caught fire and blew up, your competitors are, and they're going to be way ahead of you. And so I just see this as an opportunity for compliance to step up to a much more holistic view of risk and a much more holistic view of inserting risk management into everyday business operations to make the entire program run quicker, more efficient, and smoother.
So I agree with every single word you said. I think that the larger issue or tension the compliance officers should be aware of is, when you said the CCO can step up, that is correct, to take a more holistic view of risk, also correct. There are going to be others out there who would say, can't we step up? Who's we? They don't know. This is some semi clueless senior manager or management consultant talking about how to streamline operations. We can use AI to automate a lot of risk, which is not holistic. They're talking about taking risk and shattering it into component shards and then give each business function a shard, except for compliance, rid of that and cut the budget. There are going to be short sighted, misunderstood, or misguided fools out there at large corporations who will think that is the godsend. And they're wrong. However, there's still going to be people out there who are going to think that's worth a try. So I would just say everything that you mentioned, Tom, about this is the CCO's chance to step up and to take a more holistic view of risk, and then you can leverage that for better risk management. Like, start on that now and secure the beachhead for a strong and prosperous, robust compliance function in the future. I think few people would disagree that robust compliance capabilities are going to be important in the future. Risk assessment, due diligence, cultivating a strong speak up culture, regulatory change management, policy management, all of that, everybody would say, yeah, we're going to need more of that. But then if you say, let's house all of that in one place under one executive so that we can leverage all of that in a good, unified, far-sighted way, that's where some people are going to say, do we really need to have it unified? So long as we have the capabilities, do we need them housed in a program? And I get that we had the need to use them in the program when the FCPA enforcement was there, but now it's not. So do we really need it? That's going to be the counter argument somebody somewhere is going to make. And compliance officers need to anticipate that now, because I think it is a deeply flawed analysis. But there's a lot of deeply flawed analysis floating around in corporate America and global corporations generally, and it's really tough to stomp it out.
I hope compliance professionals will understand that more effective compliance equates to more efficient business operations, equates to greater profitability. But Matt, for my part, I'm going to end with purloining a little bit of your blog post because it ties directly into the message I want to send out. And your concluding paragraph is, so yes, this is a challenging time to be an ethics and compliance professional. I'd still bet on the durability of the ethics and compliance profession every day of the week. I would just add, now is the time to up your game and move forward. But I'll give you the last word.
Well, you can feel free, Tom, to purloin some of my copy at any time. I look forward to the residuals and royalty checks in the mail next week. But that's all. Thank you very much.